Every winter, college students flock to the mountains to ski and hike. But what happened to a group of grad students in the Soviet wilderness in 1959 was nothing short of a massacre. There are plenty of theories about what could have happened in what's become known as the Dyatlov Pass case. Now, some say the students were killed by a Yeti who was stalking the area. Others believe they were murdered after stumbling across a secret government weapons testing area. Now, this mystery has never been solved, so let's take a closer look at what happened. I'm Amy. Thanks for clicking on True Crime Recaps. Now, the cross-country extreme ski trip in the mountains was all Igor Dyatlov's idea. He thought it would be a fun adventure to take a group of other grad students up to the top of the Otorten mountain in the Northern Urals of Russia. They were supposed to be gone for 16 days. On January 23rd, 1959, the group of 10 experienced hikers, 8 men and 2 women, set out. A week later, 9 of them would be dead. The 10th hiker bowed out 6 days into the journey, complaining of back pain. As it turned out, it saved his life. On February 26, a volunteer search party discovered a gruesome scene. Pieces of the students' clothing and shoes were gone, and their broken, battered bodies looked like they'd been hit by a car. But the strangest thing was their injuries. Some students had unexplainable cuts and bruises. 2 of them were found without their eyes. 1 woman was missing her tongue, and 2 of them were radioactive. And then the Russian government made this case top secret classified until the mid-80s, which only fueled speculation. So what happened to those students? Now, cameras and diaries were found with their things that give us a glimpse into the early days of their adventure. On February 1st, 3 days after setting out from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, the group got to the pass leading to the base of the mountain. Now, heavy snow and wind made conditions so bad they lost their way and they accidentally changed direction. Instead of heading for Otorten, they ended up west of their original destination on a slope ominously known to the indigenous people as Dead Mountain. That's where they made camp that night, and it was their last night alive. When no one heard from the group by February 20th, a search team set out to find them. 6 days later, they found an empty campsite. Now, it was obvious something terrible had happened there. Their tent had been cut open with a knife from the inside, and it was all but destroyed. Inside, things were orderly. Their blankets and boots were neatly stacked. Firewood for the stove still stood by the tent entrance, and the remains of what looked like their last dinner was still laid out, ready to be eaten. Now, autopsies revealed only 5 of the 9 hikers died from hypothermia. The others have never been determined, but here's how they were found. Around the tent were several sets of prints. It looked like the students had left in a combination of bare feet in their socks, and one might have been wearing just 1 boot. Now, their trail stretched downhill about 100 feet toward the tree line before the prints disappeared. Investigators followed the trail for a mile before they found the first 2 bodies next to a campfire. 23-year-old Yuri Krivonishenko and 21-year-old Ural Deroshenko were barefoot. They were wearing only their underwear in sub-zero temperatures. Now, you may or may not know this, but in some fatal cases of hypothermia, the victim succumbs to what's called paradoxical undressing and terminal burrowing behavior. In English, that means they try to get naked and crawl into a small space, even though they're freezing to death. But it's not something that happens to everyone. It's only found in about 20% of hypothermia deaths. Sometimes alcohol can play a part. And a flask of vodka was found in the tent. Now, This paradoxical undressing could explain why they were almost naked, but it doesn't explain why they left the tent in their first place and why their skin was a dark reddish brown. Now, victims of hypothermia are pale. Frostbite can leave the skin discolored, but that wasn't the case here. They don't know what caused their skin color to change. Yuri was missing a piece of his knuckle. Yura had gray foam on his face and grayish liquid coming out of his mouth. Now, that's not a sign of hypothermia or frostbite. It's just plain weird. Now, both their hands were cut to the bone and the branches in the tree near them were torn down as if they'd been trying to climb up to escape something on the ground. 3 more hikers were found not far away. Igor Dyatlov, 22-year-old Zina Korolmogorova, and 23-year-old Rustam Slobodin were wearing pieces of each other's clothes and missing their shoes. Did they cut their way out of the tent and run into the night to escape something or someone? Zinata had a massive bruise on her side in the shape of a baton, and Rustam's head was bashed in like he'd been hit with something hard and heavy. Now, you might be thinking of a tree branch, but could a blowing branch hit them over and over in the same place, then be carried away by the wind? Because there was nothing found near their bodies that could have caused their injuries. The BBC reported Rustam's watch was stopped at 8:45. Now, it took almost 3 more months before the other 4 hikers were found. And when search parties discovered their bodies, the mystery only got stranger. Half a mile farther into the woods at the bottom of a deep ravine lay 23-year-old Nikolai Tibdo-Brignal, 20-year-old Ludmila Dubinina, 24-year-old Alexander Kolevitov, and 38-year-old Semyon Solotaryov. Nikolai's skull was damaged just moments before he died. Ludmila and Semyon had been crushed like they were hit by a car, and that's not even the strangest thing. Both their eyes were missing, and Ludmila's tongue was also gone. So were her lips and part of her cheek and skull bone. Was this a cannibal situation? No, their missing body parts weren't eaten, at least by not anyone in the group. Now, Alexander had a strange bruise behind his ear and his neck was twisted and broken. And get this, all 4 of them were wearing clothes that belonged to the other 2 groups of hikers that were found earlier, closer to the campsite, except for one strange thing. Their clothes and the clothing Ludmila was wearing was highly radioactive. And there's one more thing you should know. Some of the victims were found with their eyes and mouths open, their faces frozen in a terrified expression, and their hair was turning gray. So what happened up there? In one of her last diary entries published by the BBC, Zinata wrote this: "All day long we followed the river. At night, we'll camp on a Monsi trail. I burned my mittens and Yura's jacket at the campfire. He cursed me a lot." Interestingly enough, Yura and Zinata used to date. Before she left on this trip, she told a friend that she was a little nervous about going on this trip with them because they were like together, but not together. They weren't the only people in the group with a romantic history. 7 men and 2 women on a long, isolated trip together can lead to, let's call it, dramatic situations. So did the group dynamics fall apart and lead to their death? Now, others speculated that they were attacked by the Monsi, a group of indigenous people who had been in the area for hundreds of years. Russian police interrogated them, and some reports claim that they were tortured for answers. Now, the problem with that is the Monsi people were known to be peaceful reindeer herders, fishers, hunters. The mountains were sacred spaces, essential to their culture. It's been widely reported that in their ancient language, Mount Otorten, the group's original destination, means don't go there. But according to a Monsi tribal member speaking to the BBC, it actually means mountain with swirling winds, which also sounds extremely dangerous. In any case, they ended up on Dead Mountain. Now, if a group of them had attacked the students, where were their shoe prints? The students' footprints could still be seen, but no other prints were found, and their injuries were more severe than what a human could do. And then there's the radioactive clothing. Now, any ambush doesn't explain that. After about a month, the Russian government shut down the criminal investigation into the Motsi tribe, and they chalked the strange deaths up to a vague reason citing compelling natural forces, possibly hypothermia or an avalanche. Now, the rumblings of an avalanche might have scared them enough to cut their way out of the tent and run out into the snow half-dressed. It could also explain some of their injuries, but certainly not all. But there was no sign that anything like that had occurred up there. And in the 60 plus years since then, there has never been an avalanche in that area, at least not one reported. And when was the last time you heard about an avalanche that took a woman's eyes, tongue, and lips? Now, they also floated a theory about a rare weather event that produces infrasound. It's a low-frequency noise that incites panic in humans, and it causes a kind of internal upheaval. It can be man-made, but in this case, the theory was that it was generated by the wind. But again, nothing like that has ever been reported in that area. And how does that explain the missing body parts, the blunt force trauma, the radioactive clothing? So what explains why they left their cozy tent in such a hurry? Why were they wearing each other's clothes? And why were only 2 of them radioactive? How did they get such bizarre and different injuries? Arguably, the strangest thing about the scene was the radioactive clothing. It's so unexplainable. So what if they stumbled across a secret nuclear testing site? This was the height of the Cold War era. After all, about 30 miles away, another group of hikers was braving the elements on that same winter night, and they had a strange story to tell. They reported seeing orange orbs floating in the sky around Dead Mountain, where they actually seen explosions from a radioactive weapon. And if it was from some kind of experiment, did Dyatlov's group hear those explosions and make a run for it, hoping to wait it out and get back to their tent to warm up? The Motsi people also saw something strange in the sky that night. The BBC reported a bright burning object that was wide at the front, narrow in the back, and had a burning tail. Could they have seen something not of this world? You know what I'm talking about. I'm going to say it. Aliens. I know that probably sounds nuts, but is it though? In the summer of 2021, the U.S. Department of Defense released an official report on unidentified flying objects, UFOs. Now, according to the Washington Post, it basically acknowledges that they do have evidence of UFO sightings and they have no idea what they are. Now, it's not exactly proof of extraterrestrial life, I will give you that, but it is a big turnaround from the days when they claimed UFOs were like, they're weather balloons. They're military aircraft. They're nothing. Well, now they're saying they might be something. And whatever those orbs were in the sky on that night in 1959, well, the chief investigator believed that, yeah, they had something to do with the group's strange deaths. But he didn't get that far in his inquiry before the government shut him down and classified his research and the autopsies. So why all the secrecy? A secret nuclear testing site would explain that. But if you want to dive deep into conspiracy theories, I love that. So check out this blurry photo found in one of the cameras left behind. Is this a Yeti, the abominable snowman, a Russian Bigfoot? Did this creature cause their bizarre injuries? Was the government conducting some kind of experimentation nearby because of it? I mean, how nuts is this picture? But then again, we can't dismiss reports of those burning orange orbs in the sky. If you set aside that weird picture of an unidentified creature peeking out from behind a tree, then our money's on the nuclear weapons testing theory. Not only were 2 of these students wearing radioactive clothing, but according to the BBC, the Mansi people living near that area were banned from hunting there for years afterwards and told not to drink the water from their wells. Now, rumors and speculation about what happened would not go away over the years. So finally, in 2019, the Russian government reopened the investigation, but they wouldn't address any of the more interesting theories. Instead, they said that we'd only consider theories that put the blame squarely on Mother Nature, like an avalanche or severe winds. So by July 2020, they concluded the answer to the mystery was some kind of combination of all 3. They said they died from hypothermia after an avalanche chased them out of their warm tent. But keep in mind, the slope they were on didn't appear to be that steep. Their tent was not buried under an avalanche of snow, and in fact, there's never been an avalanche reported in that area, not before or since. Everyone in the group were experienced hikers and smart. They were studying to be mechanical and nuclear engineers. And Igor, their unofficial leader, had come through worse conditions in colder weather before. So friends say he wouldn't just run out of a warm tent into sub-zero weather unless something was chasing him. Now, frankly, no one was buying the official government explanation. One forensic pathologist even claimed the injuries of at least one of the men indicated he'd been tied to a tree and tortured. Then, in late 2021, new research published in Smithsonian Magazine suggests an avalanche really was to blame for chasing them out of their tent, and fast winds blowing through the area would have dispersed the snow, making it look like nothing had happened. That would also explain why visibility was so poor that they couldn't find their way back to the campsite. And if you believe this theory, the cold ultimately killed them. The broken bones and crushed skulls were thought to have happened inside the tent from the avalanche, and the other members of the group cut their way out and dragged their injured friends away from the area to safety. And as for the missing body parts, the eyes, the tongue, this theory chalks those up to animal activity. And the only thing it can explain is the radioactive clothing and the strange orbs in the night sky. Now, personally, our money is on the covert weapons testing theory, but what do you think? That is why I don't go hiking. And that is why I exercise in the gym. That is it's freaking Bigfoot, people. It's snowy Russian Bigfoot. No? Of course she was dating him. Everybody in this group was like dating each other, but I don't know. Would they have like freaked out and killed each other because of it? I mean, doubtful. I'm going with aliens. These are mean, aggressive aliens. No? I cannot pronounce these names. These names are freaking killing me. Of course, the government was hiding it. My God, of course they were hiding it. Of course they're covering it up. Jeez. Animal activity. It's always a freaking animal activity. So basically if you are found dead, like you can count on animals eating your freaking face. That's great. God, I need wine. Share your theory in the comments, and if you like getting all the crime in half the time, it would mean so much to us if you gave this a like and hit subscribe and the bell so you never miss a recap. Chris and I are here every week with new stories. Until next time, take care.